This is the Battle family. Dad Jason is a sales executive based in their hometown of Accrington, along with his wife Maxine, who has a full-time job taking care of the 3 children, Elliot, Nathan and Naomi. The Battle family are currently driving a Ford Escort. Ideally, they'd like a car that does remain economical and one that's suitable for their growing family. Our second family this week is the Johnston family. Dad Mike is a building inspector. Mike's wife Sarah is a nurse and they live in Swinton in Manchester with their 2 children, Catherine and Elizabeth. They currently drive a Vauxhall Cavalier and are looking for something as practical for their day-to-day routine. The first car this week is being driven by the Battle family. It's the Isuzu Trooper Citation. It's got a 3.5 litre engine and could well be classed as one of the biggest, baddest off-roaders around. Against it is the Subaru Legacy. It's more of a car that claims complete off-road capability, but still giving you the power and performance from its 2.5 litre engine. Mike is first in the driving seat with his wife Sarah. So what are the best points so far?
It's the driving of it. I'd like to have the car without the family in it. I think when they went to bed, I'd be taking it out afterwards for a little bit more exciting ride. I think it's more of a driver's car than a family car. There's a few gadgets and bits and bobs. It's got all the mod cons. It's got everything, every gadget in it you can imagine. It's got the cruise control, traction control. It's got electric everything.
It's very comfortable, and like I said, when he's going around the corners, you do feel secure. I'm not having to hold on to the door, as if I'm falling over. It's comfortable, yeah.
Meanwhile, in the Trooper, Jason and Maxine seem to be putting this rough, tough 4x4 through its paces, and so far they seem quite happy with it.
The Trooper's sporty, responds well. You're high, so you can see all around you. You can see more things coming ahead. All the controls are close to hand, and it's an all-round good performer.
I really like this one. The only fault I'd give it, that's just because it's a 2-door. It's hard work getting in and out for children. If it were a 4-door, it'd be great. But I like this. This is my favourite. I want one.
Now, we thought it was important to test out as many different conditions as possible. So we asked our families to put both cars to the test and sent them on a selection of roads and motorway to discover the good and bad points in handling, performance and comfort. Off-roaders like the Trooper can sometimes have a reputation to wobble and wallow on the tarmac and give you a pretty uncomfortable ride, which could prove a nightmare on long journeys. So is there truth in this common statement from the world of the motoring media?
On a long distance drive where you're going a couple of 100 miles, I'd be concerned that is it truly comfortable for a long distance drive. However, for drives under 100 miles, yes, it's practical.
I think it's really comfy. Sorry, Jason. Yeah, I like it.
Back on the road in the Legacy, Mike contemplates the question, would he actually buy one?
I wouldn't turn my nose up if it was given to me, of course. We've got Vauxhall Cavalier, which is a hatchback, which suits our needs as a family car. It's the family wagon. This could easily take its place. All the bits and bobs are lovely. I would quite happily have one of these, although I think I'd like to shop around a bit more first before I made my mind up.
Well, the weather certainly isn't getting any better, so we thought this was a good time to grab a bite of lunch in a local pub. The families can exchange stories about how the cars have been over the past few days, and more importantly, they can also swap cars. Let's go and do it. Back on the road after a quick change of keys, and it's time for Jason and Maxine to drive the Legacy and compare the two.
Right, the Subaru is more practical for a family. For the space-wise, and there feels more room inside, where it's a bit tighter in the actual Trooper.
I like the Isuzu more for looks-wise, and it were only a 2-door. I think that's better. It's more practical when you've got children, safety-wise.
Maxine seems to like most things better about the Trooper than the Subaru. Mike, however, has his own thoughts.
I found it a pain in the neck being a 3-door, but our family is very young and they're not in a position to climb in the car yet and strap themselves in yet.
It's a total different drive than a car. It's a bit like driving a bus, really, but I think it's just the type of vehicle. I'd soon get used to it.
Our two teams have put these vehicles through the rigours of a day with their families, but there's still one test left to do. Now, most vehicles never see more action than the odd trundle up a country lane or maybe a visit to the supermarket, but these cars are actually capable of going off-road. So we thought the mums, Maxine and Sarah, would like to do just that. Now, before you start to panic, because I know you've not done anything like this before, we've got two wonderful off-road instructors for you, so you're in good hands. Sarah, if you go off with Tim, OK, and you can take the Trooper. Maxine, we've got Selwyn for you, very experienced. He'll look after you. Off you go in the Subaru. OK, best of luck to all of you. Please don't crash, please. Now, off-roading isn't as easy as you might think, but there are 3 simple steps to success. A supple suspension, low gearing, and a very understanding bank manager. The first step, though, is to keep heading in the right direction.
You're oversteering a little bit to the left, turn to the right. We tend to do that, okay?
Yeah.
If we're a little bit concerned about that, a big drop on that side, so you tend to oversteer to the left.
Right.
It's like in fog when people are driving, they'll steer to the left because you don't want to steer to the right because you're into oncoming traffic or something.
Okay, so it's a similar sort of track at the moment, no problems. It just disappears from sight. Keep your foot well away from that clutch. Now you've got it. You're tending to cover the clutch there. You could feel it now. You can accelerate a little bit if you feel happy enough.
It's very doubtful that you would take either of these cars through such conditions, but if, like Maxine and Sarah, you decided to, how would you go on? Earlier I spoke to professional off-road instructors Selwyn Kendrick and Tim Kirk, who have tried out both cars on the course.
Well, after driving most of four-wheel drive vehicles and you come to something like this, it's not tended to be a four-wheel drive vehicle. We tend to see it in forestry experiences, loose and that sort of stuff, and I've been pleasantly surprised. It's a very capable vehicle, although they're normally bought to go around supermarkets and that sort of thing, but yes, it's performed exceptionally well off-road.
The Trooper's a type of vehicle that you can sit up and you can look at all the conditions ahead. You're not sat down in the traffic, so you can adjust your driving accordingly. But in an off-road environment, it's a great advantage to be sat high up. You can see the obstacles and you can plan your route ahead.
After some expert advice, the family test is over and it's time to find out how they got on.
How was it? Wonderful. Come round. Is it all right, Maxine?
Brilliant.
Good.
Loved it.
How did the girls do?
Absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, there's one here who's glad to see you back in one piece. There he is. Oh, there's your mummy. You've had a really good time to spend time with these cars. You've had a great look at them both. So which one do you want to take home at the end of the day?
The Trooper, definitely.
Really? Even though it's only got 3 doors and you've got both 2 young children?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah? Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, we would like the Trooper. It'd have to be the 5-door for me. We've just had to struggle getting this one out now.
What about you two? Are you in agreement there?
For practicality and performance, the Legacy. Without shadow of a doubt.
Just to be different.
Yes.
Right, let's leave the last word to you. Nathan, which one would you like to take
The
home?
Legacy.
The Legacy. Why?
Because it's got Legacy, it's got lots of good gadgets and it's automatic.
I think you're going to have a job that pays you lots of money when you grow up. That's what you want to do. Well, no matter what Nathan says, I think the overall opinion is just in favour of the Trooper.
Alfa Romeo have been very much in the news recently, and quite right too. The 156 is getting rave reviews. It's taken on the very best that BMW can offer and has sure given it a run for its money. Above that in the range, the 166, which has plenty of fans too. And if you've got loads of money and you only need 2 seats, then spend it on a GTV coupe or the very desirable Spider convertible equivalent. Now, with all that stuff going on, I guess a lot of people have forgotten about the baby of the range. Here it is, the 145. There's a booted version with a couple of extra doors too, the 146, essentially the same car. I think the 145 looks pretty indeed, and this one is the Cloverleaf, which means it's got the 2-litre engine, twin spark, too many spark plugs, and it goes like stink. That basically is what Cloverleaf means in Alfa speak. Are they right? Let's find out. Any car with sporting ambitions has got 2 key ingredients. A great engine, okay, full marks there, a tick in the box. This engine is fantastic. Needs to be revved fairly hard to get the best out of it. There's not a lot of torque if you don't rev the thing. But the suspension is the other key component. Now, suspension and ride is always going to be a compromise between how well it holds the road and how comfortable it is. And I think they've actually got the sums a little bit wrong. It's too soft, and that means that it just doesn't hold on quite as well as it might do around the corners and doesn't actually feel like a sports car. It's too soft. It's almost too comfortable. Now, would you actually want to own one? What's for and against? Well, perhaps the big for is the fact that it is a great little package. It's an enjoyable car overall and very, very capable. However, against it is towering depreciation, like virtually all Italian cars in this country suffer from. Also, the fuel economy isn't anything to write home about. It likes a drink, this vehicle. And the JD Power Reliability Survey put this car a rather sad 82nd. Now, everybody that was questioned praised its performance. The whole package, they said, was pretty right. But niggling electrical faults, minor paintwork blemishes and problems, all that kind of stuff that other manufacturers, notably the Germans and, fair play, the Brits, do seem to have sorted out now. The Italians apparently have still got some way to go on that. For my money, this is one very good-looking hatchback car. That grille is a kind of a miniaturized version of the approach of styling that you'll see on the bigger Alfa Romeos. And when we look under the bonnet, well, what do you expect to find? It's not exactly a Morris Minor in there, is it? Beautiful-looking Alfa Romeo twin-spark engine, writ large. That'll certainly impress the neighbours when you're checking the oil. And by the way, good access for all the things that you need to have access to, like checking the oil and the water, etc. As you move around the car, the big disappointment for me is these alloy wheels. Now, I really think they could have done better. It's like a sort of a 5-hole version of the old XR3i wheels from the days of our youth. This side treatment is nice with the swept up line here in the door, and these doors are huge. That's great for access. It does, however, mean that this B-pillar is a fair way back, and that means a big stretch over your shoulder to get the seat belt. But we have to compromise, I guess. These side windows, just the overall approach of that, I think, is interesting. These open, by the way, for a bit of extra ventilation. But it's when you come round to the back of this vehicle that I think the stylist really has earned his money. With that unusual and quite brave sort of V approach there, the spoiler on the top says, "I mean business," so does the Boy Racer exhaust, and above all, so does the Cloverleaf badge in conjunction with the Alfa Romeo badge. This car says, "I'm not playing around here." The interior is in many ways pretty much what you'd expect from a car with sporting pretensions. Lots of black and red piping on everything. The seating position is peculiar, it has to be said. I always figure with a sporty car you need to be well back from the wheel, legs nice and straight, but this seat doesn't lend itself to that. Although it cuddles you here nicely at the sides, there's a high front lip. Now what that means is that you have to be quite close to the pedals with your legs almost at a right angle here. Okay? That's fine, except that Alfa Romeo then very thoughtfully give you a little handle to pull at the side, which will take this seat even higher. Have I disappeared yet? Now, who on earth needs to be that high in a car? I certainly don't, that's for sure. Now, it does give a lot of extra legroom in the back if this seat is further forward, and maybe that is the point of the exercise. Rear legroom, by the way, is quite generous. This is what I don't like. Not enough bells and whistles on the dashboard. The radio is in completely the wrong position because it's very fiddly anyway, and it shouldn't be down there. It needs to be up here. But above all of this plastic just seems a little bit too cheap and cheerful for me. The switch gear is a little bit on the flimsy side, and it works today, but will it work next year? Who knows? But really, this ventilation system here, I think they need a good rethink on that one. So, the Alfa Romeo 145 2-litre Cloverleaf, on the road price 16,742. Now that sets it up against the BMW 318 Ti Compact, which will cost you around 50 quid more, and for another 100 you can have the Audi A3 1.6 Sport. A little below it, 20 quid less, the Nissan Primera 2-litre SLX. Oh, and by the way, if you really want to spend serious money on an Alfa, how about the new Alfa GTV 6-speed 3-litre? A mere £30,000 and 65 pence. That 2-litre engine pumps out 155 brake horsepower, enough to take the Cloverleaf from 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds, which is pretty seriously quick. There's a price to pay though, the fuel consumption a mere 32.1 mpg. That's not terribly good, and the insurance is Group 14. Top speed, 131 miles per hour. If you really want an Alfa Romeo, my recommendation would be save up your money and get one of this car's bigger brothers. Because, in a sense, it's a victim of its own success at the moment, Alfa Romeo, and because of that, this car really doesn't match up to the rest of the range. Now that said, that doesn't mean it's a bad car. It isn't, it's a very good car. And to be honest with you, I have thoroughly enjoyed driving it. In fact, I think I'll do a bit more of that.
Ever since the car first graced the roads of the world, it's had a bit of a problem with its safety record. Now, modern cars, relatively speaking, are very safe indeed, but if you go back 50, 60 years, it's a very different story. Take, for instance, the year 1939 to 40. The statistics for road deaths for that year were truly appalling. In fact, it's been shown that more people died on Britain's roads that year than died in active combat. And the reason for that was blackout.
When driving at night time with this very subdued light, we used to find it much easier to drive on the white lines in the centre of the road. And then if there was any traffic coming towards you, then you could take evasive action, get over to the left and just feel for the curb at the side of the road. But you were virtually driving on just a bar of light, which was about, well, no more than, I suppose, 5 yards, 6 yards in front of you. So your speed was cut right down. You just got from A to B the best you could. The other hazard about driving at night was the security, with the ARP wardens, the Home Guard, the Army and the police, ARP wardens and the security. They all wanted to know where you were going and what you were doing. And then coupled with that, of course, you had the air raids going on all the time. So you were at considerable risk if you dared go out at night.
Presumably you couldn't go very far with petrol rationing anyway, could you?
Well, yes, the petrol rationing, Steve, was 1 gallon per car, this size car, per week. And that was 4 gallons a month. And so you can understand the limitations of the use of the motor car.
So have you got fond memories of this car then?
Yes, we have, Steve. I myself possessed one of these, and a great little cars they were. And it was a car that my wife and I did most of our courting in. And we had a lot of joy out of this car. We were very, very sorry to let it go in the end.
Well, thanks for that insight, Fred. I'm off for a drive now. Can I offer you a lift?
No thanks, Steve. I only live in the village and I'll just saunter off home.
Bye. Bye. This car, a 1938 Series 2 Morris 8 horsepower, is typical of 1930s motoring. It's got suicide doors, it's got a factory sliding sunroof, it's got semaphore indicators, it's got pressed steel wheels which are easier to clean than the horrible spoke wheels that went before it, no luggage space so they have a rack on the back, and it's quite a civilised car. It cost £149 and cars like this became cherished members of the family. It seems a shame then that having spent all that money, they only really got 1 year's unrestricted use out of it before the outbreak of war. Now, as every motorist knows, a gallon of fuel doesn't go far, and imagining that I too was restricted to such meagre rations, I put the dear old Morris away before the tank ran dry.